I honestly always struggle with this text. There are so many other gospel passages that could have been chosen and, in my opinion, deserved more prominence. Why does this story, where Jesus turns water to wine, get such a prime position in the lectionary? It follows right after Jesus' birth, the visit of the wise men, and Jesus' baptism. And somehow I feel this story creates a disruption in the arc of storytelling. At least I would expect something different, maybe a healing or a raising from the dead, something with a lasting benefit. Instead, we get this catering a la Jesus, something that is consumed by people who are not even aware whom they have to be thankful for. It feels so unworthy and mundane. So is this just a test for his readiness? Is Jesus just testing the waters? The wedding at Cana happens at the beginning of the second chapter of the Gospel of John, on the third day. Before that, on day 1, Jesus was baptized. On day 2, he gathers his disciples from seemingly random encounters with strangers. And on the third day, barely knowing each other, they go all together to a wedding party. A wedding party that Jesus' mother Mary also had been invited to. Scholars do not know exactly where the biblical Cana is to be found, but what is described by John is a wedding of people with limited resources. They run out of wine. A no-go. A wedding celebration lasted several days, up to a week, and running out of wine was more than a sign of being a bad host. As wine was also a symbol of joy and abundance, the lack thereof would put the marriage on a bad start. Now, the embarrassment the situation may cause to the hosts is foreseen by Mary, and she acts. Pulling Jesus aside, she says, "They have no wine." Jesus, however, shoulders shrugging, unwilling, replies, "What's it to you and to me? Isn't that their problem? My hour has not yet come." The scene reminds me a bit of growing up with my older brother. Every time I would ask him something, which wasn't too often, I would get a no, at least at first. So that's what Jesus is doing. No. Mary, however, and maybe I should have done that, ignores him bluntly and directs the servants to follow Jesus' requests. And see, Jesus does what his mother wants him to, ordering the servants to fill the water jars used for purification rites, each holding about 20 to 30 gallons. He turns water into wine. It happens without big words or gestures. The wine is just there, as if nothing miraculous is about the process. And only in the last sentence we get a glimpse of how to interpret this event. In doing the first of his signs, Jesus reveals who he is to his newly won disciples, and they believe him. Their relationship is just a day old, so now he's proving who he is. It's not a coincidence that Jesus reveals his glory, as John writes, on the third day, at the beginning of his ministry, while at the end of his ministry, again on the third day, he raises from the dead and reveals the even deeper meaning of his ministry. Death is not the end. Love wins. So as the parallelism between water turning into wine and Jesus' resurrection is not a compositional accident, what insights do we get? Firstly, by turning water into very good wine, Jesus emphasizes abundance. Abundance that can be found in a joyful community, but also abundance that gets revealed on the third day of Jesus' resurrection, the abundance of life. Secondly, weddings, some of you may know this, are often status-driven affairs. But Jesus doesn't care about status or how or if his help is received. Not the bridal pair, nor the host, nor the steward know of his doings. Only the servants, the nobodies behind the scenes, witnessed the miracles. Jesus' first public deed was only seen by the lowly servants working, not by the guests invited. Thirdly, the water jars used for purification rites, as washing hands, become vessels of joy and abundant life. Joy and abundant life are more important than purity and purification laws. But what do these insights mean to us today? They mean that our faith is based on a community gathering. Sorry, to get this out of here. On a community gathering, on sharing, on celebrating joyously and extending hospitality to everyone walking through these doors, as the disciples that Jesus brought along to the wedding. The insights mean that we trust in God to provide abundantly, be it nourishment, be it life. They mean that we trust in God's endless capacity to transform something ordinary into something sacred, the weaker into the stronger, the incomplete into the whole. And the insights foreshadow a meal. Do this to the remembrance of me. However, we also experience every day that it is hard to hold on to these insights, the abundance. When we see scarcity, when we see need, fear, loss, and injustice around us, we drink in our everyday life just more water than wine. We know more about chronic illness, physical pain, financial trouble, systemic injustice. We see and hear the sentence in different versions every day. They have no wine. She has no cure. He has no money. They don't have strength. They have no home. But maybe we can be more like Mary and hold the balance between acknowledging the lack, they have no wine, and the trust in God's provision. Do whatever he tells you. She doesn't ignore the scarcity, but she doesn't let it define the outcome either. She trusts in God's goodness and acts in faith, even in the face of uncertainty. It also speaks to how we can approach life's challenges. We don't have to pretend everything is fine or try to figure out everything on our own. We can be honest about the places where we're lacking or where we're struggling, but then move forward in faith, knowing that God can meet us there, even when the solution seems impossible. It's a dynamic of naming the truth of the situation, even in its impossibility, and still holding space for the miraculous. Do whatever he tells you. Living in this tension, where we both name the need and the trust in God's response, can be one of the most transformative ways to engage with the world. It's an attitude of humble expectancy, knowing that the one we trust in is good, generous, and loving. And it invites others into the same trust as Mary did. Do whatever he tells you. Amen.